1 minute. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So I'm passing the moderation on to my colleague, Professor Jonathan Ventura. Welcome to all the people who have joined us. And please, Jonathan.
Thank you, Kenny. So again, good day to all of us, and I hope some newcomers will join us for the second session. This session is titled Make Others Count, and we will discuss communities, local services, etc. We'll start with a presentation by Professor Ariel Gerzenzweig from Elisava, Barcelona. And then we will hear presentations from our graduates, Raya Mo, Daniel Stern, Karen Adler, and Ati Geffen. And I'm very happy to present our next presenter, Professor Gerzenzweig. Is a design and technology ethicist. He researches the ethical impact of machine intelligence on society and the ethical entailments of professional design activity. He is the author of The Goods of Design, Professional Ethics for Designers, which was published by Rowan and Littlefield just a few months ago, and it's an excellent read for everyone. Before becoming a full-time academic, Ariel worked for the industry for more than 20 years. He holds a PhD in design theory from the University of Southampton in the UK, an MA in ethics from the University of Birmingham. His academic work has been published in ACM Interactions, AI and Society, the Journal of Design Research, and IEEE, Technology and Society magazine. He has lectured at various venues such as IGA and the World Design Organization. And he can be found on Twitter at Interacciones, where he kvetches mostly in Spanish. And apart from that, Ariel is a dear friend, and we hope to see him next year here at Hadassah. So Ariel, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you to the whole department, and yeah, Boker Tov to all of you. And yeah, I'm very, I was saying to Gideon before, I'm really happy to be here, at least online. I hope to be there next year for sure. And I yeah, I need to share my screen, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to say mazel tov to all of you who are showing your work today. I mean, it's been a difficult year for all of us, and for you too, of course. Being a student is in these circumstances is hard, although to be a student is less hard than you think it is, of course, but you will realize that later. But it's I hope you're happy with your work, and yeah, it will. I hope it's the start of a good career for all of you. So I'm gonna talk about three things today. I know my time is very limited, but I will be discussing issues related to artificial intelligence and fairness and justice. So first I will set the stage. So I will very briefly explain some topics or key terms very briefly. Then I will dive into algorithmic justice and algorithmic injustice. And then I will reflect again briefly on what design can do. This talk will be specifically relevant for industrial designers and interaction designers and service designers. And nowadays, I mean, all these fields are intertwined. So there is technology or digital technology even in graphic design nowadays. So signage used to be very static, but now is interactive, and designing a chair is not designing a chair anymore. It has some service added to it, which are usually digital. So let's start with the stage. We usually talk about diversity, right? That's an important concern for a lot of societies nowadays. But then, yeah, diversity is such a broad subject, and it's very ambiguous and very vague. And it's often diversity is structured around this so-called vectors of injustice, right? To secure, we want to make a workplace diverse, to secure that people from different races and ethnicities and genders and abilities and personalities and sexual orientations and religions and so on are able to fit in that culture. But at the same time, sometimes this calls to diversity become really predictable and banal. But the notion is very appealing. And the notion is appealing because it has to do with preserving or restoring justice, at least partially. And then diversity has become an emblem of openness and fairness. And this will be the topic of main topic. I mean, fairness and justice in artificial intelligence. So justice is more than fairness. Justice is also, like, of course, has to do with access to resources, right? So it has to do with equality and with impartiality. And this is the more or less, I mean, we could talk hours about justice and what justice is, but justice must be understood in this sense as having to do with fairness and equality. And then when we talk about artificial intelligence is it's also a very complex term, and it's very confusing because we will need to know to say what intelligence is. But when we talk about artificial intelligence, we usually are referring to digital systems that somehow can display, usually by simulating. They are not real, they just simulate human level intelligence. So they can write a text, or they can recognize a face, or they can play chess, right? And this is what we talk about when we talk about artificial intelligence nowadays. And the main technique, the main method in artificial intelligence today is called machine learning. Machine learning, I mean, I don't have the time to explain what machine learning is, but basically machine learning is about taking huge amounts of data and training a system, a computer system, so that the system can behave more or less autonomously. So most AI systems are machine learning systems. Of course, not all of them, okay? And what they do is they make statistical inferences. So they basically don't reason the way we reason. They reason as a statistician in a way. But artificial intelligence is everywhere nowadays. It's in all fields have applications of artificial intelligence, from health to transport to commerce to logistics. I mean, of course, we encounter artificial intelligence when we do our shop online and we get recommendations, and we encounter it when we use Netflix, and we encounter it when, of course, when we use our cars and we use the GPS. And there are so many different fields where artificial intelligence is being used nowadays. So, for example, dynamic digital signage systems will recognize you as who you are, perhaps by name, or perhaps just by recognizing that you are a male person and your age is 43, and then that you are wearing a suit, and then you're probably a business person, and then might recognize your face and recognize your name, and then they realize that you are in some business building and you are there to see somebody because you can access a digital agenda, and it will tell you where to go, what elevator you need to take, and it will guide you through the building. So, but we also find it in translation systems that have progressed a lot lately in the last 15, 20 years. There's massive advancement in the field of automatic translation. Big deal comes from the massive amount of texts that are produced by the United Nations, the European Union, and all these organizations that produce the same text in many different languages. So what you do is you give, like, I don't know, the Spanish Constitution to in 50 languages to a machine, and the machine will learn how to make a translation, but it's not learned in the way a translator learns language, but just basically this word is usually located to this other word and to this other word. So artificial intelligence is real, but then we have all these schmucks all these peddlers of magical AI, all these liars who are telling us that artificial intelligence is such a big thing nowadays and everything can be autonomous. And we see this in cars, for example. Okay, there are autonomous cars. We have autonomous cars, but this, I wouldn't advise you if you are rich enough to have a Tesla to do this type of thing. You know, like this is not something you want to do because the car is not that autonomous yet. So all these peddlers will be, these merchants of AI will be telling you that the car is really autonomous, but we are only at a mid-level automation. So the car needs to be assisted. So these scenarios that some people see and present on the news are not real, right? There's no car today that can do this and can allow you to do this. Of course, these autonomous cars might work in the Nevada desert, might work in San Jose, in California, where you have all these perfect streets, but I wouldn't advise you to use it in Jerusalem, you know, nor in Barcelona, you know, in these middle-aged streets. There's no way for a car to know where to go. And then I read the other day that the most modern Tesla mistook the orange moon of the last week by an orange light, and it was constantly thinking that it was a yellow light. So that's how smart they are. So then you have all these robots, you know, that robots that they pretend to be like humans and try to make us believe that they are much more intelligent than they really are. And they go to the British Parliament and they discuss things with MPs, which is ridiculous. You know, these robots are basically parrots. They are not intelligent robots. Of course, Sophia, this female robot, why are we saying that a robot is a she? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And then this robot, I mean, the Saudis have given this robot legal personhood, which is ridiculous. And now she wants to have a baby, you know? I mean, I don't know. Good luck with that. And then, of course, the autonomous cars and the trolley problem. You might have heard of the trolley problem. But if you read the literature, like scientific literature and engineering literature, you will see that there's nothing in the state of the art in current technology that will allow a robot to make life and death decisions, you know? And then often we are afraid of, oh, these artificial intelligence systems are so intelligent that they will eradicate us and the robots will rise, you know, like the Terminator did in that great movie from Cameron, Terminator. And yeah, but this won't happen. I mean, there's nothing in the current technology that will allow a robot to do this. So your Roomba vacuum cleaner will not wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I'm gonna destroy, I don't like Yoram, he's a very bad boss, I'm gonna kill him. That won't happen. You know, he won't ask you for coffee and he will fix you a shakshuka in the morning it will just clean the dust. That's all it does, because that's what it was programmed to do. So why do we need to worry about imaginary problems? You know, it just doesn't make sense when we can worry about actual problems that artificial intelligence is causing right now. And many of these problems are, not all of them. We have a lot of issues with security and privacy, but a lot of issues have to do with justice and fundamental rights. And this here we come to the issue of algorithmic injustice. So this can be illustrated with the example of Compass, which is a system that judges in the United States are using to decide whether a person awaiting trial goes to jail or gets parole based on their previous record. And this system is absolutely biased against African Americans. I mean, this has been shown by NGO ProPublica, who they researched this, and they show how the system was terrible to African Americans, just because they are African Americans. But it's not that the system was programmed to discriminate against Black or brown people. The system just took into consideration the statistics that were present in the world, and the system thought that this woman who had never been arrested before was a medium risk, because perhaps because of her name, perhaps because of the high school she went to, and perhaps because of her postal code, right? So the United States prison system is racist in what we call a systemic way. So that systemic racism gets amplified and gets implemented in AI systems, and we see this with a soap dispenser, right? That is tested for white skins and not for dark or brown or black skins, you know. So if you have a white hand, then it will give you soap, and if you have a darker hand, it won't give you soap because it just doesn't recognize it as a hand. So the issues of dignity don't get more clear than this, you know. It's just you cannot wash your hands because you're black in this Marriott hotel in the United States, and this is pretty bad. But then if we think about like artificial intelligence that is applied to cancer detection, issues are much more important, right? So we have systems now that are as good as professional doctors in recognizing moles, right? So we have papers in Nature, we have papers in other important academic journals, and they are as good or better than dermatologists. That is, if you're white, right? So if your skin is white, then the system will recognize this, and it will have an effectivity or a precision of 90%. But then you can see that the skins, the pictures that are used are very pale. So if you have a darker skin, the system won't recognize that. And this has been shown. And this is a pretty terrible thing, because if we delegate these tasks to autonomous systems, and then you have a darker skin, then you use an app or you use some type of system that is at a hospital, and it won't tell you that you don't have anything. Perhaps you do have a mole, but the system was trained with white skin. So we know this, and we know by the work by important scholars like Joy Bolanwini. She's an MIT graduate, and she has shown how commercial systems like Microsoft's and Amazon's recognition and Facebook facial recognition systems fail to recognize iconic African-American women. It's like if you develop imagine you develop a face recognition system and it fails to recognize Golda Meir. It's something like that, you know. It fails to recognize the most important women, African-American women in America. And it fails to recognize them not only as who they are, but also as women, and they categorize them as male. So this is what we have. Has to do with bias. We call bias in AI, and bias is a problematic word because bias usually refers to a sampling error, right? So when you select a wrong population for training, but that can be solved, right? Statisticians know about this, and this can be solved. The bigger problem is when you create something, and even if it's fair from a quantitative perspective, then it creates a very unjust impact on a particular group or on a whole of society. So you can train an AI with a biased data set, and it will amplify the existing bias, like we saw in the prison example, right? Just because you are black, it will make you pay a higher bail, or will send you to prison just because you're black, even if you have a previous record. But then you also might have an unbiased characteristic that might cause a bias, right? And we know like something as simple as a ruler in a picture can cause a bias. Like dermatologists use a ruler next to a mole, right? But if you're black in America, you're probably poor, so you don't go to a dermatologist. So there are very few pictures of black people with moles with a ruler next to the moles in the black skin. So this creates a bias which is very difficult to fix. My friends in Pamplona did this great research, and they photoshopped these pictures, and they show how just by if the system recognizes you as male or female, it will catalog you as or categorize you as male or as a student or as a nurse, just because if you have or a female or male face. And then we have I need 4 more minutes. And then you have something that we call false quantification. And this is a characteristic that is neutral, but it gets translated into something. And for example, job interviews are using a lot of artificial intelligence now, right? And they tell us that they're very accurate. But for example, if you use different lighting, as you see in this example, the system might categorize you as more open or as more neurotic, right? Or as more extrovert, just because of the lighting, you know? And of course, then you have another example. If you use you have bookshelves behind you, it will make you more open, you know? So these are things that are really, really difficult to control. Of course, if you have a white skin or a particular name, it might be biased against or in favor of you. So usually these biases occur along what we call vectors of injustice, right? Gender, race, class, age, what we know. And these vectors can be compounded in what is called intersectionality. I'm not an expert in this issue, but you might be familiar with the word. So it's usually, the problem here is that a lot of what we see today has to do with facial recognition. And facial recognition just look at your face, you know, it takes into consideration your face, but then it connects it to all your data in the past. So perhaps the messages you sent on Facebook to your grandmother, or the TikToks you uploaded last week, right? And this is not new. I mean, Cesare Lombroso, the Italian criminologist, tried to predict criminality based on faces. We know that this was done by eugenicists in America, and we know where the Nazis learned their theory from. And what we see now is the very same thing. We are seeing now artificial intelligence that will make inferences based on the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips, right? So, and then what can we do? And I'm almost concluding now. We need to understand that every system's aspect is a design decision. So we need to take responsibility, and responsibility can be backward looking. So we need to develop systems that can tell what happened. An autonomous car, because it's a highly regulated system, tells what went on. So we know what the car perceived. So it's about making accountability possible. So we need to document this decision. But responsibility can also be forward looking. And this is the most important issue to me. We need to realize that systems are made by people, by us. We determine the architecture. So we need to ask questions about the system. How was the system trained? On what data did it learn? How does it affect people's lives? How does it create more justice or injustice? So design, as Herbert Simon argued, is concerned with how things ought to be, right? Not how things are, but how things ought to be, how they should be. But how things should be cannot be deduced from the past. The past is the past. It doesn't tell us that it's a good past. So we need to think about what kind of future do we want. We need to have this conversation through design about how to live well. The thing is that how to live well is not an easy thing, right? We need to have this plural conversation. We need to involve a lot of people here. We need to involve, of course, design experts and engineering experts, but also representatives of civil society in the design of these systems. And this is what I had to share with you today. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Ariel. It was extremely interesting, and I have a lot of questions, but I will keep them for the Q&A. So thank you for now, and we will go straight to the presentations of our graduates. We will do it seamlessly, and we'll start with Revaya, and then Daniel, and then Karen, and then Adi. So, no. So Revaya, please begin.
Okay, רואים את המסך?
Do you see the screen? Hello, my name is Revaya Moore, and this is Milo, an application, my location application that will help you in times of routine emergency, and where my test cases were children in the areas surrounding Gaza.
Ariel and all the others, if you want simultaneous translation, just press the globe at the bottom of your screen and you will be able to hear a translation from Hebrew. Okay.
אוקיי, אז זאת אפליקציית מיילו.
So this is Milo, a My Location app that will help you in times of routine and emergency, specifically for the children in the area surrounding Gaza. I'm going to show you a 2-minute clip in which you'll see a situation of a kid in Israel living with the sirens and rocket strikes and how this app can help them in those situations.
אז מה שהוביל אותי בעצם
So what led me to this project is my personal story. I grew up in Gush Etzion during the times of Intifada, and since then I've been dealing with the sort of security-related stress. And the second reason for this project
שאותה בחרתי בעצם את הפרויקט הזה, זה שיובל היימן
was that Yuval Haiman, a friend of mine, was killed 7 years ago in the campaign, and I wanted to memorialize him in a way that was positive, in a way that could be beneficial to others. We're talking about children aged 7 to 11. Up to the age of 7, children are generally close to their parents, and to the age of 11, between 7 and 11 is an age that it's kind of between being a very young child and being a teenager, and children are oftentimes left alone at home at this age group, and it's a bit stressful. So my point is to provide children with the tools to deal with stress and help them grow in a way that is better. Studies show that resilience is one of the ways to help children help with stressful situations, and resilient means coping with emergencies, bouncing back to your mental and emotional state prior to the emergency. And resilience is not something that you're born with, it's something that you acquire. It's sort of like a muscle that you acquire and strengthen through life, helping you in those difficult, trying moments. I continue to study anxiety, stress, trauma, emergencies, and resilience when children are at the core of this. And I saw that there's a comprehensive, impactful correlation on the children's situation because of these factors. Throughout the study, I was helped by professors and doctors that are all social work or bereavement specialists. They have resiliency centers. These are people that have given me professional counseling. And when I talked to Yaeli in one of my interviews, she's a mother of 3, she says that there are resilience centers that provide therapy, but they don't provide help in real time. And that's why I really chose to intervene at this point. Design for emergency First of all, STRIBE comes from a child in a state of emergency requiring having accessibility at this time. And you need a figure, first of all, a figure that the children can see through the app. I created Milo. He's an agenderized, empathetic, pleasant, relatable figure. And the colors really relate to various emotional states, confidence, stability, optimism, joy, sadness, and through the various icons, and we talk about the values that each color represent, and through that, a child in a stressful situation oftentimes tremor. They have trembling fingers. They need bigger icons and a bigger surface space so that they press effectively on the app. Otherwise, it's not blurry. That's how children see when they're stressed. Your pupils dilate, your sight is blurred. And in order to cope with this, we have to create something that's readable, large, legible, easy for children to employ. And in terms of the scenarios, this app is used in routine, as when you go through the various scenarios that can help you and drilling, so to speak. And then when you get into a time of emergency, the application automatically changes its design to an emergency mode, as you see on the right. So the tools that can help children build resilience is have some kind of certainty. During times of sirens and rockets, there's an existential threat that leads to helplessness, stress, and difficulty in coping. To get a child out of this cycle, we have to create some measure of surety. And so the application has several certainty, so to speak, pages, so that we have the central one, for example, that tells the child and the parent where the child is. And on the third, that's the news page. At the moment, there are no news platforms that are accessible to children in real time. All of the news that a child gets at the moment are from the adult, grown-up news avenues that only increases stress. The second is to create a connection to emotions that will allow children to regulate their emotions and express themselves better, to create a sense of ability to create a strengthening throughout their lives. And the third is seeing things through a positive lens, optimism. And studies show this, that optimism is a tool that allows children to, first of all, be present in the situation, but also be released from it. And thanks is, by the way, is another word that's used in order to reorient them to routine. So I'm sure you know that when you ask your children what you'd like to have for dinner, and they say, I don't know. So the suggestive approach allows children 2 or 3 options from which they must choose. And studies show that children, when they're stressed, have real difficulty making decisions. So I wanted to implement this system, this 2 to 3 option system, and choosing within the app. The project throughout the way was developed with the help of children. I wanted to see how they use the various functions. Do they know what to press, how to interact with this platform? And then I made various changes with their feedback, their insights. The application will be launched through the Merkaz Chosen, the Resilience Center in the city of Sderot. We're beginning to develop it very soon, and hopefully I hope that it'll be very successful. And at the end of it, I want to see a vision realized in which children everywhere around the world, when they're stressed, and I think that this app can be adapted to different countries, to pandemics, to domestic violence, to daily stress, but hopefully we won't have to suffer any stress, nor our children. But as I said, thank you helps resilience. So thank you for listening to us and for all of the people who helped me throughout.
Thank you, and we're moving to Daniel. Daniel, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. So hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Stern, and today I'm going to talk about home maintenance and repairs and for the elderly. So too many people over the age of 65 feel lacking of independence when it comes to repair and home maintenance. These are some of the products that all of us have at home. When I was asking people from a variety of ages how would they perform a fix of one of these products, The most common answer was I would use the internet to perform a fix. I would use Google, YouTube, and my study shows that the internet wouldn't be the first choice for seniors, especially when we talk about home repairs and maintenance. So that's when I decided to create a platform to make information more accessible using big data and data scraping. I'm using a tool called MR, and stands for mixed reality. It's basically placing a virtual layer on top of the real world using a mobile or other device. These are some tests I ran on users. The feedback I got was quite good about the user flow and understanding of the problem. In this case, replacing the e-radar in your sink. But the problem was that people held the phone in one hand and tried to perform the fix in the other hand, and it was very difficult for them. That's when I understood that I have to make something that would allow both of your hands to be free at all times. So this is my product, DataView, is allowing access to big data information and keeping your hands free to work. Now we're going to watch a video that I created with the help of my grandfather. I think it's time to thank him. Enjoy.
Hi, Rosie. I need your help. I have some problem with my washing machine. It's making funny noises.
No problem. Let me take a look and see what I can find. I have found a few things that could be causing the problem. Let's start going over them step by step.
Okay, I'll try it.
Before we start, you should get a screwdriver ready.
Got it.
Let's start with the easy one. If you didn't open the drain for a long time, it may be the reason to the noise that you've been hearing. Easily flip the little plastic handle and unscrew the filter. Make sure you have a towel underneath the filter. It's going to get wet.
I don't see anything wrong. What do you think?
Okay, so I might be stuck in the drum. Easily flip the rubber ring and look for trapped objects.
I don't see anything wrong in there.
Now, drag the machine forward to reach the screws.
I heard a lot of noises in the back. What do you think?
Take a look at the metal wheel. That is rotating in the back. Sometimes objects get caught on it.
Oh, I see a metal piece. I'll take it out.
Great. Now, keep rotating the drum to make sure there are no more objects there.
Okay, it seems to be okay now. Thank you, Rosie.
See you at the next fix. DataView is turning off.
So assuming that some of our repairs will need a professional to guide us along the way, DataView has fast access to our phone devices so that we can have video chats really fast and easy. And by that, continuing with our fix. Another really important issue that needs to be discussed is the safety. DataView wouldn't take responsibility for every single fix in our house. It will alert whenever it detects danger, like this. Let's have a quick overview on the user interface of the product. So this is the main panel and it has three main functions to it. The first one is flip up, which opens the contrast panel. And by that, you can read content off of it and like user manual and more. The other one is quick access to settings. By flipping from left to right, you access your settings manually. The one last thing is what we discussed about contacting a professional, contacting a fast contact to your phone from right to left. You have a fast contact to your phone. Let's discuss a little bit about the design. So I try to make it non-threadable and friendly so that people would want and like to put it on their heads. Futuristic, because we're still talking about a design that would come in a few years from now. And about the measurements, I tried to cover a large range of heads with the flexibility of the material. And I came with a 10% to 99% people over the age of 60 that it covers. All of this information came from our website called Dean. About the material, we have the inner, softer, high density material, and the outer material is hard plastic. These are some details of the components that are in the product. We have the LED, the operation sensor that shows us when it's on, and camera, laser beam, speaker, and more. These are all the components when it's together in an opacity view. These are some details that are trying to hint to the user on how we place it onto our heads. The packaging and unboxing of the product, it contains the product itself, a cable, and a charger. And from the left, we can see how the customer sees the box for the first time. And hoping that data view will make us more independent and more on more fields, in every field we desire, basically. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for keeping our translator unemployed. So we're moving on to Karen.
Hi, my name is Karen Oradler. My project deals with improving the social life of high-functioning autistic on the spectrum. I will start with a short video.
כזה מקסים. בין בעצם הטובים שהיו לי. כל כך כיף לתתחיל איתך. גם אתם שמחים בשבילם? לא לכולם, זה כזה פשוט. אנשים על הרצף האוטיסטי מתקשים בדברים רבים, ביניהם יצירת קשרים בין אישיים עמוקים. בדיוק בשביל זה יצרתי את קומיון, המאמן התקשורתי שלך. אז איך זה בעצם קורה? Jenny. So Commune is part of a platform built to help people on the spectrum create better relationships. What is autism? Autism is a development neurological condition that affects two major parts of a human life. The first one is the social communication with the environment, and the second one is repetitive and limited behavior and interests. Meet my big brother and my two parents. Other than being an amazing brother who just graduated from Yale University with excellence, he's also a high-functioning adult on the spectrum. When I was little, I knew this as PDD and later on as Asperger's. We tend to think that people on the autistic spectrum look very different than us and have different needs. But what I learned from being with my brother and also more during this process, and then at the end of the day, they're just like me and you. They have desires and needs just like all of us to be loved and have friendships. I wanted to help others like my brother and improve their quality of life. During my research, I did about 25 interviews and 3 questionnaires with people on the spectrum, families for people on the spectrum, and specialists in the fields.
I also did 4 observations and worked with 5 different professionals throughout the process. I had a lot of different quotes, but I would like to share 2 major ones that I think changed my project. The first one is from Ashkenazi, an entrepreneur on the spectrum that does amazing with communities for people on the spectrum. He says that before he goes to an event, he creates a list of everything that could happen throughout the event. This helps them be more focused and communicate better. The second one is a girl, an adult on the spectrum from a TV show called Sorry for the Question in Kan 11. She said that she feels that everyone receives some kind of a book of how to interact in the world, and she was the only one who didn't receive it. That made me think, what if we could create that book and help them learn how to communicate better? From all my research, I came to 5 major conclusions. The first one is we used to see high-functioning adults look to hide their disability. But in the past few years, there's been a change in the community, and people look to actually accept themselves and show people their disability in order to have them treat them the correct way. People on the spectrum have a strong sense of feeling. This could be a limitation, but if used right, could actually create an opportunity to interact with them through touch. Initiating. People on the spectrum, even when they know what to do, what to say, sometimes they just have an issue doing and initiating it, and they need someone to push them and help them out. Research in the past few years shows that the best way of teaching a high-functioning adult how to communicate is actually with teaching them social skills level by level, together with practicing simulations in day-to-day interactions. And the last one I saw a lot during my process. People on the spectrum look to be part of a community that shares the same needs and habits as them. From all these conclusions, I came to 3 major principles for my design. The first one, as I said, is we can use the sensory ability of people on the spectrum in order to send them better messages throughout touch. The second one is because they're so visually distracted, limiting the distraction is an important key for success. And the third one, we're talking about a product that it helps you communicate. It has to be friendly and fun. Commune is divided to 3 major parts. The first one is the learning program, where you can do at home when you feel safe and more capable. And the second one is an AI virtual companion that shares the journey with the user and helps target the program, the process, helping before social interaction and after. The last item is the wearable device. It gives feedback during the social interaction and helps target the process better. This is part of my modeling process and my design process. And in the device, I wanted to point out 2 major elements. The first one is the tactile strip. When I spoke to people on the spectrum, I noticed that they're always looking to touch something in order to focus and relax. I decided to implement that inside my design. The second one is the vibration points, which I actually pass all the indication I actually pass through. The virtual system could be used also on tablet and computer for the home use, and also on smartphones for on the go. This is the home screen of the app, which basically the user can also do different elements as book events, chat with different friends in the community, target his goals, and also you can practice different social skills, organize update his goals. If a user is not using his app for a long time, his companion would remind him that maybe he should go back to his goals and change them. And after a social interaction, you would help him rate the interaction in order to understand how to improve it for next time. In this opportunity, I would like to thank 3 major people that helped me a lot throughout the event. The first one is Ashkenazi, a high-functioning young professional that is amazing for the community. The second one is Dr. Adi Pera, an expert psychologist in the field. And the last one is Adi Michaeli, the CEO of Shavim in Israel. The future of Commune. I believe Commune has a long way to go. During my research, I took part in a hackathon, an organization that helps develop products for people on the spectrum. Next year, I'm looking to join the hackathon in order to continue developing Commune. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Karen. And we'll conclude this presentations by Adi. Adi, are you ready? Okay.
Shalom לכולם.
Hi everyone, I'm Adi Geffen. I'm going to present my project with a very short video and then we'll continue. Persona, platform for acquiring tools for the public sector.
הפלטפורמה שתאפשר לכם, עובדות ועובדי המגזר הציבורי, לרכוש כלים פרקטיים לביסוס אמון מול אנשי המגזרים השונים, תוך שיתוף פעולה עם אנשי המפתח בשטח.
אחראי לקשר עם תושבי מזרח ירושלים, בכל מה שקשור לחיסונים, בדיקות והסברה סביב הקורונה. חלק מהקושי באמת היה לנסות לנווט משהו שלא עשו לפני זה, ובעצם בנינו את הכל מאפס.
הרווחה ישבה שם בחמ"ל וגם העירייה ישבה שם בחמ"ל, אבל בגלל שהם כל כך מנותקים מהאוכלוסייה ומהצרכים, אפילו לא חשבו, כאילו, להתקשר לעזר מציון לוקח דקה.
פרסונה תלווה אתכם שלב אחר שלב, מתהליך הלמידה הראשוני, תוך יצירת התוצר המתאים ועד שיתוף ההצלחות ולמידת עמיתים. המגזר החרדי צורך את המידע הרלוונטי לו אחרי שעבר את התיווך המתאים, בדרכים הבאות: כריזה ברחוב, עיתונות, לוחות מודעות, פה לאוזן וקווי נייס, שזה כמו חדשות בשיחת טלפון.
מה שעשינו זה התחלנו במנהל הקהילתי, לכל אזור היה מנהל אחד או שניים, וראש המנהל קישר אותנו לאנשים מתאימים, ודרכם הגענו גם למוכתרים וגם לאימאמים במקרה הצורך.
בעזרת פרסונה תוכלו לנהל פרויקטים שונים ומורכבים עם האוכלוסיות השונות איתם אתם עובדים ביומיום ובחירום.
הפלטפורמה טובה לכל אירוע שהתרחש, יש את האנשים שאיתך, יש את מה שאתה צריך לעשות, ואחר כך אתה צריך להגיע לשטח, אי אפשר לעקוף את השלבים האלה. אז כן, אני חושב שזה כלי מצוין.
אוקיי. אז כמו שראיתם בסרטון, בעצם בשנה
So just like you saw in the video, this past year I researched conveying messages in the ultra-Orthodox sector with COVID, and for me as a person, as a designer, it really pained me to see the hatred that evolved here in Israel against ultra-Orthodox because they didn't comply with the instructions. So I reached several insights during my research. Once there isn't any cultural compatibility or adaptation, then people do not comply. First of all, there's an incompatibility with the media in which messages are conveyed, and also they need approval in the Orthodox sector. They need the rabbis to approve all the instructions. And the third thing is adaptation to their lifestyle. Just imagine yourselves in a lockdown with 10 children at home in an apartment that has about 2.5 bedrooms. So the insight was that we must establish trust between the civil service and the civilians out there, and not just with the ultra-Orthodox sector. We could see that in the improvements between the first and second and third waves. My third insight from a project held by the Jerusalem municipality and the Homefront Command during the second wave of COVID, there was a person who was named Ish Reshet Chayil, and even Dina is here and she helped us come up with the name. Just like many others, she was some kind of a mediating factor between the ultra-Orthodox sector and the municipality in Jerusalem. So you need to have some kind of a key figure to do the translation. It doesn't matter how much I study the ultra-Orthodox community, I'm not a part of it. And my last insight is, in order to establish a proper emergency routine, you need to implement processes during routine times to be prepared for emergency times. And all these insights led me to the area of opportunity. How can I, as a designer, establish a platform that will support this participating process between civil servants and people from different sectors? And this is how I got to Design Persona. It's a platform that gives tools to civil servants and instructs them step by step how to establish collaboration and cultural accessibility, all that through the co-design methodology. So first of all, the values that this platform is based on are empathy, trust, tolerance. These are words that lead to trust establishment, and we've discovered that this is key. And the platform is on a website, and those who use it are the different civil servants along with the key figures, and the purpose is to serve the entire sector, the people who are out there. The entire platform I learned from success and failures of 13 people from the ultra-Orthodox sector, civil servants whom I interviewed, in-depth interviews throughout my research, and I really translated these success stories and failures into practical tools. And this is a wonderful opportunity to thank them and to my design consultants who saw my products, my outcomes. So thank you. Some of you are here. So the platform is made up of 6 stages. First of all, you need to deepen the knowledge. Then you identify partners, define goals, go out to the field, check your products, and share success. As far as the color scheme, I chose a very pleasant, easygoing colors in order to inspire confidence. And there was a gradient between the light blue and the purple to show people that it's a process that you can't start in the middle. As far as the icons, these are very soft, pleasant, empathetic, shapes and nothing sharp. It conveys empathy, and all the pictures on the website are pictures that I took in neighborhoods all over Israel. And I have to say that the ultra-Orthodox sector was chosen as a text case. Of course, we can translate this to any other sector. So these are authentic pictures and are cut according to icons to show that this is how we view them through the lens. The platform can contain over 30 tools, and these are just, bullets, titles of the tools that I'd like to continue and develop this year. But throughout the project, I couldn't develop all of them. And indeed, in every stage is made up of 4 to 9 sub-stages, and throughout the platform, I chose to use first person singular and second person singular in my wording to motivate for action through the verbs I used, and also to establish objectivity. So a stage or a sub-stage looks like this. There's a certain explanation on what's going to happen now, a video, and specification of small steps that can be adopted. And all these things, whatever you collect, I, as a civil servant, I can implement it into the website in order to create some kind of an organizational memory and generate data. And in some of the stages, they even include certain auxiliary tools that you can print out and take with you. This is, for example, an interview that I can take along with me. One more thing that this platform enables is managing several projects simultaneously. The platform is appropriate for every scenario, for every sector, and I can control what's happening at what stage I'm at in every project. And there's also an option for peer learning. If something was successful now in the Jerusalem municipality, why not reproduce that in the municipality of Bnei Brak? So how I see the project in the future, I've, taken time in the next year in order to really implement this project, and with the help of Elka from the JDC. And my hope is that for every sector here in Israel and all over the world can receive a tailored response, a tailored and accurate response. Thank you for listening, and thank you everybody who helped me.
Thank you, Adi. Again, I feel like a proud parent, seeing his family graduate and continue to their professional life. And again, amazing projects. And before we open the floor to all the participants, I would like to kick it off with a question to our esteemed colleague, Ariel. And I would like to ask the first question. Again, thank you for the really eye-boggling presentation. How can you be fair? I mean, you discussed the concept of fairness, but how can you be fair and just while working for the industry, you know, as industrial designers?
Oh, well, that's the $1,000,000 question. Yeah, well, I think it's, I made a case in my book for thinking realistically about what you can achieve. I mean, you always work with others, and you work in an environment where conflicting goals and conflicting values. So, and even fairness is not a clear-cut thing. I mean, there are very many different conceptions of fairness. Even numerically, there's like 72, I think, conceptions of numerical fairness. So even mathematicians don't agree what fairness is. So it is an ongoing discussion. And to me, the issue is more about the engaging in wanting to achieve that. Is more of a process than getting to a destination. From a virtue ethical perspective, it's about like having a good purpose in mind and aiming towards that, and it's engaging in that task, what really counts, and at the same time owning what you do. And if you have to make rotten compromises, like Avishai Margalit wrote about, sometimes you have to make rotten compromises, and if you have to make these rotten compromises, then you the important thing is that you understand why you make them in order to safeguard what more important goods. Sometimes at one particular stage in your life, you might need to work for an advertising company that you don't really like, but perhaps you have to pay your mortgage, and you have a small child or whatever, and that's certainly more important than other goods at one particular time. So at least you need to be conscious about why you do it and what you do. That would be because if you are not conscious, what you do is you compartmentalize. And then if you compartmentalize, then you fragment yourself. And if you fragment yourself, you have a diminished moral human being. You have like different silos within you. And that's a pretty dangerous thing to do.
Professor Grosenzweig, I have a question for you as well. I would like your view on, I mean, if you look at what happened with the environmental issues, at the end, the industry, they created this sort of role as chief environmental officer in the company, and then they put it in a drawer and it went away. And then they have this thing with inclusiveness, and then they have a chief inclusive officer, and they put it in a drawer, and then it goes away. So what I would like to ask you is two things. First of all, what are your views on, because definitely the ethical side, because of what we're going into this next, in the next stage of the information age, is going to be hugely important. So what would your views be on how that would develop? That's one thing. Another thing is, do you think that there is already a mature methodology that can be applied even in the cases where we are presented with conflicts in today's, I'm talking about today's development of products?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, Kenny. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like all these chief officers, and the risk there is like what it's called greenwashing, right? And then you can have ethics washing as well. And then like recently there's this compromise for the environment that was signed recently by Amazon and Facebook and other important companies. And then Jeff Bezos go to space, and then he pollutes more than like 80% of the people will pollute in their whole lives, right? Yeah, this is an important issue now, that all this social design and environmental mindfulness and ethical consciousness that doesn't go to waste and it doesn't get institutionalized just for selling more products. I was thinking about this one, thinking about the Daniel's project, which was, all of them were very interesting. But I was thinking about Daniel's project in the sense that a lot of this, when these products break down, this is planned obsolescence. It's broken by design. I mean, we make the stuff to break after 5-6 years. And that is the crucial issue here. So of course, the European Union has just changed the laws, and this is a partial answer to your question about making mandatory for companies to keep providing replacement parts 10 years after the product has been discontinued, right? So because people have the right to repair. Nowadays, because this regulation is not in place, if some device breaks down, often you don't have the possibility of repairing it, because not you, even if you should take it to a repair shop, they won't be able to fix it because it was designed in such a way that repairment is impossible. So there is an important lesson for us as industrial or product designers. And talking about methodologies, I think there are a lot of methodologies. I was going to suggest to Adi the value-sensitive design methodology that was developed by Batya Friedman in the United States. And the value-sensitive design methodology is a methodology that has its shortcomings, but it was specially developed for information systems. And a problem here is a problem of values. So value-sensitive design is a methodology that is specifically crafted for designing with values in mind, and not my values or the designer's values, but the stakeholders' values. And stakeholders understood in a broad sense, like even perhaps the planet and culture as a whole. So perhaps we might think that is something worth preserving in the Haredi community besides their health, right? So there are some important values that are relevant there that are worth preserving, and because they think so, right? So so the value-sensitive design methodology is pluralistic in that sense. And in my book, I have a very short summary of a few methods like transition design, and there are several methods. But I think my opinion is that it is not the biggest problem is for ethical design, or the obstacle is not a methodological problem, but a problem of attitude. Sometimes we are designers and we see ourselves as professionals, and we have all these methods and we have all these techniques, and we have less is more, and we think about materials, and we think about all the different aesthetic or functional issues, but we forget what we design for, or we forget, or perhaps we don't know. So we don't have this ultimate purpose that doctors or lawyers or even soldiers have, right? So why do you teach? Why do you heal? Why do you fight a war? Why do you care after people? So you know why you do it, right? There might be conflicting purposes as well, right? So some doctors might have one particular purpose and some other doctors might have different ones. But we as designers, we don't have a clear answer for that question. And to me, that's the biggest challenge nowadays.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. I'm just going to present a question for graduates. And again, this whole session was titled Make Others Count. And of course, the others are indeed ourselves. But just during your work, we have seen design with the elderly, with children, with different social groups. But what was your biggest challenge when designing for, quote unquote, others? I think it would be interesting for us to hear about your experiences. Adi or Rabaya,
can I start?
Or Daniel? Yeah, sure.
I think the biggest challenge for me, at least, is that it's a really hard. Sometimes it can be really hard to address somebody and say, "Hey, I'm working with people in the elderly ages 65 and more. Could you please cooperate?" It puts you in really difficult places, and I think that was my biggest challenge. There's people that could accept their age and could be really good participants, and there's people that really had a hard time with that. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges I had in my project.
Okay. Anyone else?
אני אגיד שהיה לי קצת קשה.
I'd like to say that it was a bit difficult and challenging for me to go back to childhood, to go back to a younger age, whether it was to open up my own traumas and fears and to try and see it in today's children and to design for the other. That's always a challenge, but that's our job. We design for others, and we need to always remember that we're not designing for ourselves. Often throughout the project, I felt, if I were a girl, what would I want to have? So that's one thing that led me. But another thing that really led me was not to design for yourself, to design for others and whose needs are clearer. I'd also like to answer. So what I focused on was how to mediate things in the best way, so in order to ultimately represent a certain sector, how can I maintain a certain neutral position and to just represent in the most accurate way and to reflect what everybody needs, and I kind of just set myself aside, detached myself. Of course, I was there, but I had to constantly think from a different perspective than the one I'm used to.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. Would you like to add something? Okay, so we have another 5 minutes, so if anyone has a question to Ariel or our graduates, it would be great.
Can I say something about, I just posted a message and I posted it to you, I realized, but it was meant for everyone. And many of you mentioned the idea of needs, and needs are certainly important. And but also you can expand that with the idea of capabilities. Those capabilities are what people are effectively able to do and be, right? So a capability is frees you from that distinctions between real needs or true needs, you know, like an imaginary needs, like do you need an iPhone or do you want an iPhone, you know, like wants and needs. That's whereas if you think in terms of capabilities, it's a very rich notion to me for design, because if you think in terms of capabilities, then you put yourself in the frame of mind of the other person. Like it's like, what does this person want to be able to do and be, because they have reasons to do, like to do or be or feel or learn whatever, right? So the idea of capabilities is, to me, I mean, check out you can check the capabilities approach. It might be a bit complex, but Martha Nussbaum has this book on the capabilities approach, and that's pretty accessible. Yeah, that was another recommendation, so to expand the idea of wants and needs with capabilities.
Okay, so once more, Ariel, thank you so much for taking the time and yes, you know, giving us your perspective on things. I'm just going to say that we'll have a 15-minute break, and even less. At 12:25, we'll have our keynote speaker, and it would be very interesting. And she just sent me some really exciting news regarding her role in the COVID in London. It will be headed by Professor Joanne Bishard from the Royal College of Art, the Hamlin Center for Inclusive Design. So again, thank you, Ariel, and thank you for our graduates, and we'll see you in around 10 minutes or so.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to you all.
Thanks, Ariel.
Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
See you.